everybody, and welcome to this week's Writers Chat. And this is where we like to get together as writers, talk about all things writing, about writers, and for writers. And we're so glad to have so many of you with us today, or taking the time to watch the replay, because it's important for us to feed our souls as writers. And today we got a really important topic and a very, very special guest. So I'm going to ask Melissa to introduce our topic and our guest today, and I'm excited to learn.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited too. It's been a little while since we've had our guest, Edie Melson. She's been with us before, and we just always enjoy having Edie. She brings such a wealth of information to the table and just so fun to hang out with and talk to. And so we're excited to have Edie back. And I know that there are probably some people either in the audience or maybe watching the replay who might not know who Edie is. So I'm going to share her bio with you. And that's kind of fun since today's topic is going to be on writing your bio as a author or writer. And so Edie Melson is a woman of faith with ink-stained fingers, experiencing life through the lens of her camera. No matter whether she's talking about faith, writing, or social media, her first advice is always find your voice and live your story. Her reputation as an online expert is well-deserved. Her blog reaches thousands and has been on the Writer's Digest top 101 sites for writers since 2017. And that's just awesome. I love that site, and I'm a devoted fan. In her role as social media coach, she's worked with clients that range from authors and speakers to business and ministry leaders. Her best-selling ebook on the subject has been updated, expanded, and re-released with co-author Diane Mills as Social Media for Today's Writer. She's the director of the Blue Ridge Mountains Christian Writers Conference, board member of the Advanced Writers and Speakers Association, and author of numerous books. She's quick to remind those she meets about the practical and personal applications of God's infinite love. And you can visit her online at ediemelson.com. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Edie to share about bios today. And also just a quick note that she has given us some handouts today, and I have put them in our group, and I will share the link in the chat so you can go and download them. And it's just really excited to dive right in here. Thank you, Edie, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I was around when Serious Writer began, and what a resource for writers. I mean, you all have been on the Writer's Digest list as well, and I'm constantly sending people to Serious Writer to get the information that they need. So it's an honor to be here. So, writer's bio, no pressure teaching class on writer's bios and sending your bio to the host. And we were talking before we got started about the necessity of having a bio. And I just want to say that as a writer, we definitely need a bio. But we probably need more than one. And I'm going to be sharing my screen back and forth. And so I want to show you my bio. Let's see. Trying to get us out of the way so I can get it up here. Okay, this is my bio file. What you may or may not be able to tell is it is 35 pages long. These are all the bios I've had. Started out when I had my first book, Fighting Fear, Winning the War at Home When Your Soldier Leaves for Battle. So this file began in 2012, actually. And instead of deleting bios, what I do is I just keep adding to the end as things change. And I find that it's very helpful because I can go back and pull things from other bios to craft a specific bio for what people need. So just in case you think I have it down to 3 bios, I have 35 pages of bios. And I think I would die if I lost that file. So I have it in several places because it is so vitally important in in a bio. So as I said, you need more than one. You need some specific ones. You need a really tiny, tight one that is 25 to 50 words long. My super short, I call this a super short bio. Mine is Edie Melson, author, blogger, and speaker, has a passion to help those who are struggling find the God-given strength they need to triumph through difficult, and sometimes I change that to challenging, circumstances. Connect with her at www.ediemelson.com. So that is my super short one, because sometimes you write for places and they'll say you can have a bio, but it can only be 2 sentences or 10 words or 25 words. And so that one is the hardest one to craft. And so as we go through this process this week and next week, I provided you with a bio worksheet. I recommend you start with the biggest one. That you need one that is almost a full page in length. And this is an in-depth one. And one place where this bio is so important is on your LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn allows a very long bio, and all the things in your bio show up in a search. So like if someone is searching for teaching freelance writing or social media expert, those terms in my LinkedIn bio will pull my profile to the top. So your LinkedIn bio is probably going to be the social media bio, and really the bio that's probably the longest anywhere, because this is where you want to load it almost like a CV. You want to talk about your expertise. You want to talk about all of the writing you've done, the groups you're in, but you also want to make sure that you keep it relevant. Okay. Then you also need a medium one that is usually a couple of paragraphs. Okay. The one I sent to Melissa, I think, was 3 paragraphs, and I actually left out the end of mine that I usually do in that one, because I wanted to talk about, since I'm talking to writers, I wanted to emphasize my expertise and the relevancy of what I was teaching. So I let a little bit more about social media and the Blue Ridge Conference and my other expertise stay in, and it actually kicked out the ending. Here's what my ending usually is. She and husband Kirk have been married 40 plus years and raised 3 sons. They live in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains and can often be found hiking, with Edie clinging to the edge of a precipice for the perfect camera angle and Kirk patiently carrying her bag and tripod. Okay? Now, I have to say, I really struggled to come up with something that was engaging about my family without giving out too much information. But I have to ask, don't you want to go with me on a hike now? And that's really what your bio is. So you've got these 3 major bios: your small one, your medium one, and your full page one. But one of the things we want to keep in the forefront of our mind, and I've already used the term several times and you're going to get sick of this, is the word relevant. Okay? Now, let me backtrack just a little bit. One of the things that people will ask is, should my bio be in third person or first person? And my answer to that is yes. It depends on who you're talking to. If you're writing YA, and you are connecting with people who are very into Snapchat and social media, a lot of times those bios you will see have moved from third person to first person. So I am old school. My audience tends to be a little bit older than teens or young 20s. I tend to be like 35 plus to, well, the rest of us. And so my third person bio is not a problem. Also on LinkedIn, since that is a business site, third person is really what you want, because you want to sound professional. So, well, thank you. Whoever wrote that, I just see an I. It says you'd go about anywhere. I invited you. Well, you're all invited to the Blue Ridge Conference, and we go hiking every morning. Okay, but as far as first person or third person, that is also a personality quirk. I know some people who relate in almost everything they write, and if you're writing in first person, particularly if you're writing in first person present tense, a first person bio in your book or on the back of your cover is a must. So think about your books that you're writing. Think about the tone of them. You really want your bio to not be a shock when somebody reads it. You don't want to read it. You don't want it to read like it came from academia when you're writing fantasy. So, all right. So let's go back to relevant. Your bio should reflect through words exactly who you are. It should boil down the essence of your personality. It should, and it should be something that makes you interesting. Okay? I can't tell you how sad it makes me to see writer and author bios that look like they came from a template with no creativity at all. What that tells me as a reader is if they can't get creative about themselves, how can I trust them to write a good book? It's just, it gives that impression. The reader may not go through those steps in their mind, but that tends to be the impression that we're leaving. So when I go on Twitter and I see in the bio, I'm a Christian writer who loves Jesus, my first thought is, well, I certainly hope you love Jesus if you're writing Christian fiction or Christian nonfiction. And I want to message that person and say, come on, you're a writer, be creative. Give me some connection point. So make your bio relevant. And we talked about that as well. My bio for this was focused on my writing expertise. When I'm writing to a women's ministry group, depending on my topic, I may be talking about soul care or creativity. My bio is going to be heavier towards those aspects. I talk about the fact in those bios because I have a series called Soul Care, which is connecting with God through creativity. So in those bios, I share that I am the daughter of a world-known artist and a classically trained musician turned photographer father. And that if I wasn't creative, I might have been kicked out of the family. So that gives me an instant connection point, and it gives me the credibility to talk about creativity. If I'm talking to people in my age group, which would be baby boomers, and then I might say that I grew up in the 60s with my artist mother, my musician father, traveling across the United States in the back of a VW van, which is all completely true. So these are connection points that I can bring to my audience. And so you want to think about that. One of the things that I included in the handouts was how to write your author mission statement. And the reason I included that was not because your mission statement should technically be part of your bio, but it helps you drill down to the essence of what's important to you and what makes you unique to your audience. So I do recommend as you're writing your bio, you kind of look at that worksheet and see if that would be something that might help you when you're writing your bio. Okay, your bio should also be timely. Okay, we were talking about this before we began, and I'm going to repeat what we were talking about. Can anybody say COVID hair? I know so many people whose hair color changed because they quit going to the hairdresser or the stylist. Sorry, dating myself. During COVID, some of us, some of us already had technical COVID hair because I don't color my hair. So, but for the most part, I can't tell you how many people were at the Blue Ridge Conference this past year and saw several faculty members who had let their hair go naturally gray and did not recognize them because their biopics didn't match that. And your picture is part of your bio. So you want to make sure. One of the things I did is I just had new headshots done. And the reason for that is because I used to wear contacts. I have now aged out of contacts. They can't make them strong enough. And so now I have glasses. It's a subtle thing, but I've had several people say, "Oh, you didn't have your glasses on in your last headshots." And I was like, "I did, but they were contacts." So, you want to keep that in mind, and you want your picture to reflect what you actually look like. Another thing is somebody asked, how often should you change your bio? And my answer was as often as it needs to be changed. And here are some of the things that make it need to be changed. When you have a new book contracted or when you have a new book published. And I'm going to actually pick on poor Melissa because I was going through her website and I found her About Me page. Okay. This part is good where it talks about I write edgy Christian historical fiction. I'm an author. But the title feels difficult since my series is yet to be published. I think you told me that you just had to promote 4 books at once. You're right at the beginning of that. These will debut in 2022. So actually what this hers is pretty close to updated because she updated this to reflect her contract. But now you should have they debuted, the date, and the link to the books. So it's time to update. Okay, so I warned her that I was picking on her. I didn't do it without asking first. And I don't ever pick on anybody without them asking. You also, if you won a new award, I have several bios that need to be updated this week because last week my latest soul care book won the Christian Living Book of the Year award at the Christian Marketplace. So I will be talking about that in the bios that talk about soul care. Okay. Also, if an industry position changes, for years, I was the social media director at Southern Writers Magazine. And so a lot of my old bios reflected that. Well, when they closed Southern Writers Magazine, I needed to change that because that's no longer relevant. The magazine is no longer up. I really hated to lose that position. And I hated to lose that magazine. What a great magazine for years. I totally understand. Takes an inordinate amount of work to get a magazine up and running. But you have to keep in mind if your position changes, then you need to change your bio. I know for years Diane Mills was my co-director at the Blue Ridge Mountains Christian Writers Conference, and when she retired, her bios all had to change from co-director to former co-director. So these are all important things, and they keep it from being confusing. All right, your bio must give you personality. I want to see your personality in your bio. And I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to show you several bios that explain or that exemplify this point. All right, so this one is from Amy Williams, AC Williams. This is her picture. Award-winning author Amy Williams is a coffee-drinking, sushi-eating, storytelling nerd who loves cats, country living, and all things Japanese. She'd rather be barefoot, and if she isn't, her socks won't match. Okay, so lots of personality there. Even if you don't like sushi, you definitely want to hang out with Amy. Here's another one. This is from Tim Suddeth. He is not yet published, but he also writes for The Right Conversation. I love his bio. Tim Suddeth is a stay-at-home dad and butler for his wonderful adult son with autism. Doesn't this make you want to know this man? And then he goes on, he gives his credibility. Then he talks about he shares a house with a bossy Shorkie and two curious Persians. So again, we get a lot of personality there. This is Anne Mulligan. Anne lives life from a director's chair, both in theater and at her desk, creating novels. Okay, so immediately we get who she is personality-wise. Now, I'm going to wait on that one. Okay, stop sharing. There we go. Now let me find my notes again. I have like a zillion things open. It also should give you credibility. Okay, you really want your audience you don't want to brag, but if in the instance of a bio, if you don't state your credibility, then you can't expect them to understand what it is. Okay, so for example, when I was doing my science fiction and steampunk books, my author bio talked about the fact that I've been a sci-fi fan ever since I grew up sitting in my daddy's lap watching the original Star Trek series. Okay, that immediately gives me the credibility to say I am a sci-fi nerd. Okay, and so that gives me that connection point with my audience. Even if they're a young audience, everybody knows who Star Trek is. And the fact that I was in there at the beginning gives me a certain cachet. Okay, another thing you want to do is there are some things that you want to avoid in your bio. Let's face it, not all of us are experts in everything. One of the things that used to drive me, that used to affect me, it didn't drive me nuts, it was just something that I was ashamed of, was the fact that I do not have a 4-year degree, a college degree. And so I used to feel like that made me less of a writer, less of a person because of that. And, but I have since learned that whether I should or shouldn't have, I have moved on past that. I don't have time to get a degree because I'm too busy doing what God is calling me to do right now. But I still don't mention that in my bio because to some people that is a negative. So I don't tell people in my bio, even though I don't have a 4-year degree, I'm still a great writer. I just don't mention college education because it's not relevant except to me still in a negative sense. Okay. I also, you want to be careful not to say in your bio, although Edie is not a mother, she has great insight in parenting. Okay, now a lot of these are the bios that come up in your proposal that might come up in a query letter. I see these all the time in query letters. I haven't written in this genre, or I don't read this genre, but I think I could write it. I have had at least 3 people send me a query letter to proof where those words were in there. And, people think that they are being forthcoming and honest, and really and truly, they are giving people a reason to say no. Now, you don't see these a lot on your website bio, but if you're looking for publication, you're sending this to an author or to an editor or something. That can be a really difficult thing. Also, unless your book sold well, don't mention your book sales until you're asked. Now, once you're asked, you want to be very honest. And if there are reasons that the book didn't sell or whatever, then you definitely want to let people know. My first sci-fi book was published by one company. It came out on a Thursday, and the next Friday, that company closed. And then it was bought on the following Monday. So, like 9 days into my book's life, it became a stepchild. And so for the first year and a half, it just languished. I mean, it was the company that had bought it was working through current releases and trying to stay up to date. I mean, it was a lot of work. And so I knew even if I had emailed, it was just going to stress the editor out. I didn't really want to tick her off since she now had my book. But a year and a half later, as they were continuing to go through the backlist, they found my book. They emailed me and said, "We love this book. We have updated the cover. We have created a book trailer for you, and we are giving you an audiobook because it was neglected." So, sometimes it pays to be patient, but I'm really glad that I didn't apologize for that book in the meantime and say, well, book sales were so bad, you may not want this book or whatever. So be careful, resist the urge to explain. And that is relevant in your bio as well. Now, I want to read something else. I changed this. Okay, where is it? Let's see. I had it up. I really did. Okay. All right. What not to do in your author bio. This was I've slightly changed this so that nobody could tell whose bio this was, but this was actually the 3rd paragraph. The author self-published, and I changed the title. In January of 2011, it's found on Amazon, although not available due to the publisher's suggestion to remove it. And it gives the ISBN number, which I X'd out. The intent of self-publication wasn't to market, rather it was to have a book on my shelf. The Amazon account paid $45 after 3 years. I purchased 90 units and gave away 2/3 of them. The book started the 3-book series that this author is now pitching. Okay? So you really want to be careful not to share that. Let's see. Catherine says, if it needs an apology or an explanation, it doesn't belong in a bio. Ooh, that's good. I may even quote you on that. That is excellent. So you want to be careful. Another thing you want to be careful of is you want to be careful not to not to show up like you're trying to be smarter than everybody else. Okay, for example, I'm going to share a screen. I said I was going to show this. And I adore Peggy Sue Wells. I really do. And if she's in the room, she's probably the smartest person in the room. But this particular word, does anybody know what that word is? Tropical island votary and history buff. That's basically someone who loves tropical islands. Okay. But this can be for some people very off-putting. She goes on talking about she parasails, skydives, snorkels, scuba dives, and has taken pilot training. And she writes from the 100-acre wood. I mean, she is a precious lady. And yet, those things have to overcome the fact that she uses a word that, unless you're in a spelling bee, you may or may not know. So you want to be careful of that. And she has since changed her bio. That is not her current bio anymore, but I have permission to share it. So that is another one that you want to be careful and make sure that you're not using terms that other people won't understand. Okay. You also don't want to include information that is unrelated to the person reading the bio. For example, I ran a daycare, and I didn't, but if it said Edie Melson at the end of it, instead of talking about hiking and stuff, I said Edie Melson ran a daycare for 20 years and loves children. Okay? But I write YA science fiction. Okay? That would not be relevant to my audience or to people reading my book. If I was writing love-inspired, sweet romance where the main character works or owns a daycare, that would be very relevant. Okay, so you want to make sure that what you're saying is relevant to the person reading the bio. Now, there's another aspect of this that's really important, and that is when you're writing your bio or your About Me section in your website. Okay, your About Me section is only about me in as far as it makes me relevant to the person reading my bio. So it should not say, I'm the author of 18 plus books and I've been in the industry for 25 years. Instead, it probably would be better to start off, we all struggle trying to apply God's strength in difficult circumstances. Okay, do you see that is a connection point? Then I can go on and say, as the mother of a former frontline infantry Marine and a woman who has experienced tragedy, Edie knows the value of connecting to God in difficult circumstances, finding his strength and his path when the world looks bleak. Okay, so I've given you my credibility, but it is in relation to what my reader is looking for, because every person who visits your website to find out about you is trying to find out if you are worth her time or his time, if your books are going to have any relevance to where she is, and if you as a person are interesting. So About Me is only about me in regard to how it connects me to my audience. So you want to make sure that it is relevant in that way. And that it is related to the person reading that bio. You also want to avoid any kind of exaggeration. Okay. I will, when I first started out, and I had 3 articles published, I used the word several, because 3 or more is several. I didn't say Edie has only published 3 articles. One of the things I said is Edie has written for Focus on the Family, Family Life magazine, and several other publications. Okay, those other publications were really minor publications at the time, but there were more than 3, so I could say several. So you want to make sure that if you've only written for Focus on the Family, or if you've only written for one thing, you can name that one thing. But you want to avoid exaggeration. but you do want to craft it in such a way that it makes the most of the experience you actually have. Okay, so here are some of the instances that we need bios, and these are in the notes that I gave you. A cover letter, which, by the way, a cover letter, I'm sure you all know, but this was asked to me just this past week. A cover letter is not a separate document attached to an email. It is the email that introduces either the query or whatever. So it is, a cover letter is an email in general. I mean, I can't think of hardly anybody who sends real letters or accepts real letters anymore. You'll need your bio in your book proposal. Again, you want that bio to be relevant to the books you are proposing. You would need it in a query letter, which again is an email. You need it for your website. You need it in social media. You need it inside your book or on the jacket. You need it for publicity. If you're doing any kind of an interview, whether it's online, TV, whatever it is, they all want your bio. So also in that publicity, it needs to go in your press kit and in a publication. At the bottom, like a lot of places will give you a short bio. And that is often where your 25-word bio comes in. And that's why it's so important that everything on your website is up to date, because that's where they'll go. All right, let's look at some bios for social media real quick, because those are also very short. And but they're a lot of fun once you have some of those connection point phrases. They're really good in your bio. So here's my Twitter bio and also my Instagram bio. Author, blogger, and photographer, traveling through life with ink-stained fingers and a camera as I explore God's world through creativity, writing, and soul care. Okay, that is my Twitter bio. This is my bio on Instagram. It is very similar. After that first sentence where it says through the lens of her camera, I also have free tips for photography, blogging, and writing. Okay. Another great bio is this one from Scott Schuler. It's very short, but it's very relevant to what he is doing online, helping others get their hearts right with God. Here's a quote from him. Why can't I get this Jesus thing right? That makes him very approachable as a Christian and as a teacher. Here's one, Bethany. I adore Bethany. And she has the best literary agent and marketing strategy. She has her credibility, her relevance, Palms, planner, obsessed, literally allergic to books. She has all of this in here, makes her very, very approachable. Okay, here's one from Sarah Cormany. She says, I write, I speak, I help others find their voice. And in it all, I love watching Jesus take the hardest stories and turn them into something beautiful. Okay, again, something that is really going to relate to the people who are looking at her. Let's see, if you're sending a requested book proposal, which would contain the bio, would you also use a short bio in the email cover letter? Yes, but I wouldn't call it a bio. In a cover letter, you want to start with your hook. Well, actually, if you have met the person, you want to put requested material in the subject line. And then your first sentence should say, I enjoyed emailing with you, or I enjoyed meeting you at this conference, or whatever. Just a quick sentence reminding the agent or the editor where they met you. Then you want to go into your book hook, okay? The thing that's going to make them go, oh, yeah, that one. And then after the book hook, you want to go into who you are as a writer. So it's not called a bio, but it is a bio paragraph. And that's where you would want to have your relevant information and something that makes you interesting. Okay. I have a book proposal right now that I'm working with that is a devotional that marries my photographs with meditations or devotions. And it's all about seeing God through the lens of my camera. And so I would be talking about in that cover letter, the email that if I send it out, my agent's actually sending it so she can do the cover letter. But I would talk about the fact that I was raised by a professional photographer and, you know, just different things like that, as well as the fact of I have 18 books. I've been in this industry for over a quarter of a century, those types of things. Does that answer your question, Sally? You can just give me a heart or something. Great. Okay. And I am fine with people asking questions. If I miss it in the chat, one of the moderators can take a look and stop me because I think it's important. I will hopefully stop in time for some questions. Okay, it's important that you control your bio. You send the one that you want your audience to have, which means you have to plan it now. Your bio is part of your personal brand. It gives you credibility, and it should contain the things that pertain to that credibility and your identity. So now I have some steps listed in the handout, but I also included in the list that I sent Melissa a whole bunch or a writer's a bio worksheet. So you can download it. It's a PDF. You can download it. You can write on it. You can pull out your notebook and just write it out. But you want to ask yourself a few questions. When I do something, I like to start large and then funnel down, drill down to the important stuff. So that's the way this is created. So the first one is step one is you want to ask some general questions. What are my passions? Why am I a writer? Why am I pursuing the craft of writing? What value do I give my audience? What are some of my strengths? What impressions do I leave with most people? And now there's one that we tend to not be able to answer ourselves, but that's where a group like this comes in handy. So email your friends and say, give me 5 adjectives that describe me to you. And, look for the common adjectives, okay? And use that. In step one, you don't want to worry about sounding like an egomaniac when you're answering these because this is a rough draft. No one's going to see this. Okay? So write it down. Step two, you want to kind of drill down a little bit. You want to talk about what is my expertise, what experiences are relevant to this book, what aspects of my personality give me credibility. One of my bios states the fact that I have embraced my identity as an organized creative. Okay? So, that is very relevant when I'm teaching bullet journaling or I'm teaching any kind of journaling. Okay? What studies have you done or taken or written that give you credibility, and what life experience gives you credibility? Unfortunately, I had a lot of life experience on my latest soul care book, Soul Care When You're Grieving. And so, but the fact that I had just experienced that kind of a horrific event gives that book additional credibility. Actually, the book was due to the editor the week my young daughter-in-law was killed in a tragic farming accident, leaving my son and their 3-month-old baby. So that's what I'm referring to. That was in November of 2020. And so we pulled the book and I dedicated it to my precious Katie. But things like that give you credibility through your life experiences, and a lot of times your life experiences are seen as more relevant than if I had a degree in grief counseling. I'm much more approachable because I've experienced it and I've walked where they have walked. Okay. All right. Then you want to go to step 3. And that's where you're going to kind of put everything in order. And you want to put it in order of importance and relevance. This isn't the time to build up to the point. You want to give them the best thing first because you want to be so compelling that they want to read the rest of your bio. Okay? So, and then step 4, you're going to flesh it out. Build a word pool. From the questions above, when you answer them, you'll begin to see a trend. What are some words that you use? Connection is one of the things. Creativity, different things that happened that I talk about that you associate with me. And then step 5, you want to pull it together in a full page bio that has everything in it, something that you can then pull from for different bios. And you want to keep 1 or 2 relevant taglines, like a woman of faith with ink-stained fingers. For people who know me even marginally, know that I collect all things typewriter. Okay, so even my bracelet has typewriter keys. So that's kind of a nod to that. I also love writing with fountain pens, so frequently I do have ink stains on my finger. All right, that's the overview. Now let me invite some questions. I don't know how you want to handle this, Melissa. I know we have about 10 minutes in the hour, but I'd like to address anything else that people have questions about, and then I'm happy to stick around for the informal thing afterwards as well. And then next week, what we're going to be doing, and Melissa has a jump on all of you, as she's already emailed me her bio. I'm going to go through and critique bios and help you pull out the essence of who you are. I love doing that. You'll get a better critique from me if you email me your bio in advance. But I also work off the cuff, and I'm happy to do that. So, Melissa, I'll turn it back to you and Johnny.
Okay, I'll turn
So
it
are you
back
gonna
to John.
are you gonna put in the chat the email to contact Edie, or will it be in the group?
It is in the group currently, but we can also add it in the chat.
Sorry, I missed it. Thank you.
And I think it's very important that you put the subject line, which Melissa will also put in the chat too, so that because I forget now, is it just request bio, or what was the
Writer's
Critique.
is fine. The thing of it is I get approximately 500 emails a day.
yeah.
And so I really don't want to miss one for this thing before we meet again on next Tuesday. And those subject lines really make it so that they stand out and I can just pull them into a file. You don't have to, you can send them in a Word document, you can send them in the body of the email. Wherever you send them, I'm going to copy and paste them into a single document. So I have all of them.
I copied and pasted it straight from Writer's Chat. So now they've got the instructions right there in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you. And do you care if it's a longer one or shorter one, or should we specify this is what I'm using on LinkedIn or something like that? Or do you
If
care?
it's a social media bio, I would like to know that so
Okay.
that I can help you with that. But you know, you can if it's a full page, depending on when I get it, I may not be able to do an in-depth critique. But I will try to do depending on when I get them, I will probably do a track changes and maybe just send Melissa the whole document, because I'm assuming if you're going to send it to me, you know I'm going to be talking about it in this group, so you don't mind if I share it.
Yeah.
So that way I don't have to do individual documents.
Sounds good.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Please feel free to come back on, everybody. And then if we have questions, anyone has a question they want to ask before we leave, that would be wonderful too. I don't think we missed any
I don't think so.
questions in the chat. This was so amazingly thorough. I think one of the things that really hit me was when you talked about those connection words, because I think I do well with my bio on a lot of the things you said, but I don't think I have maybe that initial connection, especially about me on my website. So, I'm eager to kind of dive into the exercises and try to figure that.
It's a great opportunity for all of us to revisit all these different areas. I didn't know the thing about LinkedIn that, you're supposed to flush that one out. It's probably a cut and paste from all my
Exactly.
one. And so now I do want to go back and look at that one. I loved that tip and stuff. And the idea about looking when you get done with these exercises, creating a word pool. I think that would be a wonderful exercise for a number of different areas. Just like you said, you're even soul mission in life. Those words are powerful. To see those reoccurring words that God's placed inside each of us. That is our core essence. So I love that idea.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned about pages on our website, on that, because I think mine's probably a little stiff to start with, and then I added more personality, and then at the bottom I added a little video, because I think that's how they get to know you better too.
Mhm.
I don't know if you want to say anything about video bios, like that's the only place I think I'm using it, but
Video bios can be very very powerful. If you have a YouTube channel, you should have a YouTube video that's like a trailer introducing your channel, and that would be basically what your channel or what you are about. Please don't go to my YouTube channel because I don't do that. I am actually in the middle of completely revamping my YouTube channel. It's going to become everything writer. It's going to be like the right conversation on video. So that's taking a lot of work, and I didn't want to pull it down and put it back up because I already have a few followers and things. So everything's a work in progress, and I do invite you to look at all my stuff and see how not perfect I am. We all have only a set amount of time. And in the past, I pretty much ignored YouTube because I didn't have time for it. And now I'm getting to the point where I really want to do more. It's perfectly fine to have a social media place that you ignore. Just make sure that your bio there is relevant. That's the only want to keep updated is your bio and your headshot. Last year, I was looking at my LinkedIn bio, and I had a headshot from 2012.
That's about how old my headshot is. I hate to tell you, but I mean, it's blonde and younger.
And I haven't changed that much. Why do I need a new one? Plus, it was a professional one. It's the only time I got to go to the Blue Ridge Mountains Writer Conference, and she did a really good job because I hate pictures, because my mother used to make us fake all the pictures because she'd forget to take pictures. So it's like, oh, it's every Christmas. So I have this thing that I'm overcoming about pictures in the first place, and she did a really, really good job. So as long as I don't change too much, do I really need an updated one?
As long as people can recognize you, you are fine without one.
Okay, thank you.
You just want to make sure. I mean, people could tell from my 2012 picture who I was. I haven't changed that much. I now have glasses. But I like to be relevant. Now, I have a friend of mine who, because of missionary work, she does not have any head-on pictures, and she does not have her real name anywhere.
Oh,
Wow.
But even with this picture, it is still very compelling.
Mhm.
Okay. She is the only person I have ever worked with or met that I completely agreed she needed to have a different persona on everything that
Yeah.
was published, that was digital. She's the only one I've ever met. And
Mhm.
so I can say she's the exception to the rule that we need to look like we look. Always
I love
except
that. Such great examples you gave us too. That was really, really motivating to see it in different places and how, and I guess that would be probably a good thing for us to do is, like you said, we can go to your website, but study other people's bios.
this is one thing I ask my students, which I didn't include in any of the notes. Who do you want to be like when you grow up as an author? All
Very
right.
good.
And why? What is it about them that you want to emulate? If it's just their publishing record, then their bio and stuff may not be as relevant. But, look at the people you admire as authors. Look at the people that you want, say, I wish I could be like that. And then drill down and then figure out why and figure out how you can emulate their connection points with you and apply it to your connection points with your readers.
Yeah. Study our mentors.
Yes.
Study our mentors, which could be a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
It is noon. I think probably we should wrap up the recording. Johnny, do you want to do a wrap up? And Melissa, do you want to say again about next week?
Well, again, next week, Edie will be joining us to do the bio critique. So please send in your bios for critique if you're interested, and we'll love to see those and see the creativity in the group. Yeah, and yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, Edie, thank you so much for being with us. This was fantastic, and we're glad that you're here and are staying for the after party for a little bit too. Those of you who are here, we're always thankful to have you. If you're watching a replay, we thank you for doing that too. You're invited to join us any Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. We're almost always here except around the holidays. And of course, we invite you to join our Facebook group and check out our Facebook page where you can find all of our episodes also on our YouTube channel. So till next week, thanks everybody for being here. Bye-bye.
Thank you.